I mean, we rounded them up.
We rounded up over 100,000 Japanese Americans, and we put them into what they called relocation camps.
Oh.
And Roosevelt signed the order for that. We had evidence that we could have let them out very easily in 1944, but Roosevelt would not do so because he thought it might hurt him in carrying the western states when he was running for his 4th term for re-election.
Never forget, my grandparents were big supporters of FDR, but that was the one thing they kept saying, because they lived right down the street from a Japanese American family that had lost the farm, everything else, and they just thought it was just criminal. Just thought it was absolutely criminal, and it was. So let me go here. The university system before, during the Revolution, et cetera, totally different than it is now.
Yeah, before you spoke at commencement the other day, we had a baccalaureate service the night before, and I reminded the students that the baccalaureate service was started at Oxford University in 1432. Every bachelor had to give a sermon in Latin to graduate. The tradition continued into American history because most universities here were founded to train ministers of the gospel. But now, because of the revisionist history, the separation of church and state, it's no longer allowed at public universities. So I reminded them that's one of the privileges that they have of attending Liberty University. We continue that tradition. But there's so much revisionist history. They're not taught about how FDR tightened the money supply, increased taxes, and lengthened the Depression by 15 years. They're not taught that John F. Kennedy lowered taxes and had years of prosperity, or that Ronald Reagan...
No way JFK would even be welcome in the Democratic Party.
No way.
No way.
Ronald Reagan lowered taxes, and we had years of prosperity. They're not taught any of that, but that's the purpose of Liberty University. That's what we are.
I hate reading history books now without a ton of original sources all through it, because they're guessing. They're not really going back to the original. And there are 2 lies, I think, that are so powerful. One, that you're not qualified to teach your children. You got to have some expert do it. And 2, you need a historian to tell you. Didn't George Wythe, or is it Wythe or Wythe? Wythe, I think. He taught George Washington, and it was all original sources. That was the idea, wasn't it? Go back to the original source, not somebody's interpretation of it.
Well, that was the beginning of Western civilization as we know it, going back to Erasmus at the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. The phrase was ad fontes, go to the fountains. Don't listen to what some scholar tells you, because he may be lying to you. Look at the text, and that was in the biblical sense. What does the Bible say? What did Augustine say? What does Calvin say? What did George Washington? What does the Constitution say?
Isn't it amazing how when you get away, when somebody says, don't read the Bible, you come to me for that, and I'll tell you what it says. When you create that system, you create a system of corruption. And that's what we've created on everything. 100 years ago, people used to argue the constitutionality of things. When the Dred Scott law was passed in the Supreme Court, people stood up and said, hell no, that's not right. It was the court that did it. It was the people that said, not over my dead body are we going to do that. I mean, they knew, but now we just look to experts. Well, they just said, who the heck are they? They just said.
There's a famous dictum that historians use, and that is, the living can make the dead do any tricks that they find necessary.
Back in just a minute.
Do you ever lie awake at night and think, man, I just wish I had a juggler on hand to help me explain the role of government interference in our lives? Yeah. Or maybe just a big pile of monopoly money to make sense of foreign debt. Lucky day for you. Look no further. Just record this show or DVR it every day at 5 p.m. Eastern. I mean, I'm there for you, baby. You know what I'm saying? Ooh. I think I made most of the audience just throw up in their mouth just a little bit. There's nothing like a little Glenn after hours. Did it again. Remember, midnight snack and a side of me. They took away my M&Ms and they replaced them with grapes because of the war on chins. I am grossing America out like crazy. Make sure you join us every day. DVR or record the show, 5 o'clock Eastern.
We're back with Peter Lilback and Jerry Falwell Jr. Also, Burton Folsom Jr. is with us, and a studio audience here in New York. Start in the back. What was your question or your thought?
Well, I was going to say, in middle school, I only learned 1 year of American history. And now, in high school, I'm only learning 1 year of American history, which is this year. Every other class, freshman, junior, and senior, we learn European, world. You don't learn American history. So, we gotta have more years of American history.
Is it true that because I've read this and I don't know if it actually passed, there's one state that is now trying to push that there will be no American history, it'll only be global history, prior to I think it's 80.
I hadn't heard that.
I'm pretty sure that's true. And it's coincidentally about the time that the progressives started to come around. Yes.
No, well, my question is, why is this not being taught in our schools? Our children should know this here, that this is it's scary. What I'm learning today is what's happening right now in our present. And it was saying if you don't know your history, you're designed to do the same thing again in the present and our future. Our kids should know this. This is very, very spooky. I'm very, very afraid just learning what I'm learning now because it's still going on now.
Burton, let me ask you that question. Can you answer that? Because you're a guy that studied the New Deal, and you also know Woodrow Wilson. I mean, can you not look at Woodrow Wilson and almost see what's coming next with this administration?
Well, you can, because Wilson did not like the Constitution. The Constitution was too limiting.
Right.
Wilson wanted to redistribute wealth, take from some, give to others. That's not equality of opportunity.
Would you say, because I never got the impression that FDR had contempt for America, but I think Woodrow Wilson did. And a lot of people would speculate that maybe Barack Obama has a little contempt for the history of America or Western civilization. Do you see a pattern or a similarity between the two of them in that?
I think in that instance, you're right. Franklin Roosevelt, his ancestry went way back, and he did, in his own way, have a love for America that Wilson and Obama simply do not quite share. At least they don't share any kind of respect, deep respect for the Constitution.
Yeah.
Wilson thought it was outmoded, and so does Barack Obama.
Right. It's just that they don't necessarily hate it. It's just that it was a nice little thing, and it's in the past, and let's move on from that, right?
It worked in 1776, but today we can trust leaders with more power.
Right. And who was it? I think it was Wilson said, don't read the Declaration of Independence. It has life, liberty, pursuit of happiness was for then only. And the Constitution also, we're only supposed to read parts. We're not supposed to read the preamble, right? Isn't that what he said? Yes.
And he just didn't like the idea of equal rights for all. He liked the idea of no checks and balances. He wasn't liking that centralized power.
Okay, back in just a second. I want to thank our guest and leave Jerry Falwell Jr. with the last word.
Just want to end by saying Liberty University will continue to teach that economic justice means what the founders meant. If you earn the money, if you work hard, you keep it.
God bless you. From New York, good night, America.